Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjanaya Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashoda Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashoda Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashoda Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Astoru Shishya Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya Astoru Shishya Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Anantikoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Naam Acharya Silaridas Thakur Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसरि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की वृंदावन नवदीप धाम की Gangamai Jamunamai ki jai. Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi ki. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Juhu story, I'll Build You a Temple by Giriraj Swami. This is from October to December 1977, and page 590 we're reading from. I will just paraphrase a lot of them. I'll try to read some of them, some paragraphs. So here, Giriraj Maharaj and his parents, they stayed in Nepal for a week. And then they flew to Delhi, and then the parents left for Chicago. And Giriraj Maharaj returned to Vrindavan. So when he came to Vrindavan, he entered Prabhupada's room. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, well, Giriraj is here. And Prabhupada, oh, Giriraj? Yes, Srila Prabhupada replied. And immediately Srila Prabhupada asked him, how is your health? So Giriraj Maharaj says, that Prabhupada was very kind and compassionate, because at this time Prabhupada was on his deathbed. And yet he was asking about his health. Now this is care, devotee care, because we all are different. We're individuals and we're different, and we have different levels of karma. And sometimes we judge other people by our own performances and health conditions. And that is something we should not do, because everybody have their own karma and everybody is suffering in different ways. So you can see that Prabhupada was very compassionate, and in other instances also he did this. But he was very compassionate, and he was asking about his health. And at Prabhupada, we in different parts of the world would have been inquiring about him. There are many letters, that Prabhupada would be inquiring about him. For some reason, perhaps a lot of affection he had, and then he would inquire about him wherever he was in the world. So from this we can, there were other instances, like once Prabhupada was being worshipped, as the Acharya. And amongst this roaring kirtan, he noticed that somebody was, his foot was cut to one devotee, and he called him. So this is a devotee care. Sometimes we be very Krishna conscious. Like the other example I always think of is the one about Mother Malati's daughter who dunked her hand into the hot chutney, and the devotees were, the first thing they thought of, can we offer it to Krishna? That's the first thing they thought of. And when Prabhupada heard about it, Prabhupada asked, Actually, her hand was burnt. So Prabhupada asked, and he said, he didn't worry about the chutney. He was more concerned about the person. So sometimes we may be more concerned about a commodity. We're not really worried about the person. So when I was reading this last night, I was thinking very much about what devotee care is about. It's just much more than just giving some prasadam, it's a little more than that. And so anyway, and then the devotees were concerned more about the chutney, the offering to Krishna. But we learn from the scriptures that more important than Krishna is the devotees. Of all the types of worship, Aradhanam Sharvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param Tasmat Paritam Devi Chadiyanam Samarcharanam. Of all the types of worship, the worship of Vishnu is the highest. But higher than Vishnu is higher than the worship of Vishnu is those things that are related to him. And that's a devotee. So when I read this, I was really struck by it. And he responded, "I'm better," he said. And then he started finding about the news of Nepal. And Giriraj Maharaj gave a very nice description of Nepal, how the program is there. They have a nice house with many rooms. They have Sankirtan daily. They go out in the street. But the society was not registered there as yet. And he accompanied another devotee called Prabhu Vishnu. He came here only once. Prabhu Vishnu Swami at that time. And they were in the process of getting it registered, their society there. And he's reporting to Prabhupada about, and Prabhupada was very eager to hear this news, although he was in a very frail condition. And Prabhupada was happy. And then Maharaj is explaining Prabhupada about the royal family there. There's a royal family in the state of Nepal, and they run the country. It's like separate. Of course, they are Hindus. So anyway, Prabhu Vishnu Prabhu, he met a relative of the queen. And the lady was very enthusiastic about, Krishna conscious activities. And they were very supportive. And they were also very supportive. And people were joining. There was so much field for preaching. And Prabhupada is hearing this while he's lying on his deathbed about Nepal. Prabhupada hadn't gone there to Nepal. It was so good because there was a royal family, there was life membership, there was business community, there was Sankirtan going on, book distribution, and also there were many hippies there. And so, and he's saying, so we could recruit devotees from them. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, they are good customers. And Prabhupada laughed. So Prabhupada was, according to Giriraj Maharaj, was the real Patita Pavan. He was a real deliverer of the fallen souls. And they have a nice program. They have a love feast program. The people are simple. They're good natured. A very deep description is giving Prabhupada, because Giriraj Maharaj is a very detailed person. He's very consistent in what he says, and he's extremely detailed. He can tell you exactly what happened at a particular point, who was there, what they said. It's very detailed. And the people were very happy. They recognized the devotees, which Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked, and Giriraj Maharaj says yes, and they are not envious. Because in India, Nepal is, just like out of India. In India, there are many envious people because, people are just a little different. But the people were more peaceful in Nepal. And the people were very happy to see the devotees. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada if he has gone there, and Prabhupada said, no, he hasn't gone there. And whether he would like to go at some point. And Prabhupada said, why not? Because that relative of the Queen Mother there, wanted someone to come and give lecture, so they were thinking of Prabhupada to go, because he hasn't gone there. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was saying that's really a good field for preaching. Because see, when you go into areas, there's this, not every area is like conducive for preaching, because sometimes, devotees get stuck in an area and they get attached to it. But it shouldn't be like that. We should move on and look for other pastures if things are not working. Even Prabhupada did that himself. When things didn't work out in Jhansi, he moved. What he said, Rupanoga? Yeah. So one devotee, Trivikram Swami, Trivikram at that time, what about the language? Is that a problem? Now many of them speak English, some speak some Nepali language, and Prabhu Vishnu was very proactive, and he arranged for the perfection of yoga to be translated in Nepali. So this is what, as devotees, when we read these pastimes of Prabhupada, it should give us some impetus to go out there and do things like these. Somehow look at how we're going to spread Krishna consciousness. Does not necessarily have to be here. It could be even out of the country, or somehow we should look at how we can spread Krishna consciousness. And Prabhu Vishnu was doing well. And then so Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked, or was telling Prabhupada, do you remember when you said, Prabhu Vishnu, that he has the courage of an Englishman and the heart of a Bengali woman? Prabhupada said, yes. And Prabhupada said, these were not his words actually. These were the words of a great poet, because sometimes it's quoted like, this book is like a real manual, to for the movement. And when Giriraj Maharaj's parents took him there to Nepal, they was making another offer to him. But he was not tempted for the fortune. But they were helping Prabhu Vishnu. Even Giriraj Maharaj's father was giving some dollars to Prabhu Vishnu. So they were in a shop. And in the shop, the Giriraj Maharaj's mother was writing a check. So the man got upset now. They don't accept checks. But it was not for him, it was for Prabhu Vishnu. So then the owner of the shop thought the check was for him, and he started making objection. So Giriraj Maharaj's father said, no, in our system, listen to this, the husband gives to the wife, and the wife gives to the son, and the son gives to Krishna. This is very nice. Gives to Krishna. Everyone laughed. So like that. But then, subsequently, Giriraj Maharaj had a dream. And in this dream, he dreamt of Srila Prabhupada on the premises of the Vrindavan temple. And there were some doll exhibits. And he was saying how to improve the quality of these exhibits. because this was their sadhana. But Giriraj Maharaj took it that he was telling him that he should improve the quality of his service. And also, in a dream, he was, Prabhupada was reciting that very famous verse, which is quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela. Amara agya guru hana tara e desh, yara deke tare kaha Krishna upadesh. Whomever you meet, speak the instructions of Krishna. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to deliver everyone in this land. And you were saying, and you were saying, this is my order. So in the dream, so you do it for me. I felt that you were saying that since it was your order, and we are doing it for you, even though it was very difficult, it would be successful. And then Prabhupada got back into, continued the discussion on Nepal, and how they were renting a place. They were paying some rupees, not a very phenomenal amount, and they were living very, very peacefully. And they had a temple. And as we mentioned earlier, there was chanting party, and this discussion was brought up again, and our prasadam was also brought up. So Prabhupada was very pleased with the efforts that was made in Nepal. So Giriraj Maharaj was now in a dilemma, because Prabhupada was talking so much about Nepal, because he's involved in Bombay. And he was encouraging. And he said, just try to manage and try to implement two things. Try to manage and try to implement. So later Giriraj Maharaj asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj, what is Prabhupada referring to, for him to personally is referring to the movement collectively, or is referring to him to be involved in Nepal? So Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, well, he thinks that Prabhupada meant the movement. So anyway, but then Gopal Krishna Maharaj was in India, in Bombay, and he wanted him to return because they were preparing for the opening of the temple. But now he was in a dilemma, because he's with Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and he wanted to stay with Prabhupada. And he asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj, but he was silent. He was asking different people. Then he asked another devotee called Jagadish, and he analyzed and he gave the pros and cons. But when Maharaj asked him about the conclusion, he said, you decide yourself. So this is very interesting, because he prayed and prayed for guidance, and somehow from his indication, from within his heart, he decided to stay and be with Srila Prabhupada. So he decided himself. Sometimes this is interesting, because you can consult many people, but ultimately, you have to weigh the pros, cons, and then pray to Krishna and then decide. There's a system. A lot of people, sometimes they come, they want to get some advice from me. So I tell them what I feel, but I tell them also, go pray to the deities and see what's your thoughts after that. So there's so many lessons you can learn just from this book. Then Prabhupada, after 2 days, he started getting into the Bombay, what's happening in Bombay. And Maharaj said, the construction is going on, and they met a man, Mr. Lord, he could help. He was an aide-de-camp of the Viceroy of India. He knew a little Hindi. He was good, well-cultured person. and he could help to manage the restaurant and guest house. And he he really didn't want any salary. He just wanted to stay, do some service, and just get a place to stay and do some service. So Prabhupada was very impressed with that. Then after that, there was arrangements for Prabhupada to meet the President of India. There's another Indian gentleman, Mr. Pula Reddy, who was assisting in Hyderabad, from Hyderabad. So, but Prabhupada was really concerned about Sri Raghunath ki. Prabhupada was concerned because the domes weren't finished in the temple. There were some things done, but there were some things that were left behind schedule, especially the marble work on the domes was behind schedule. So Prabhupada, when he heard this, what the report from Giriraj Maharaj, he responded, "It will never be finished." It will never be finished. When is the date fixed? So he was concerned about the dates, because then Giriraj Maharaj said, well, in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disappearance day, the ceremonies can begin a few days, they will have the yagya. There's a whole process. That's a little detail. And they were meant to get brahmanas. The whole idea is to get these Brahmins, and Prabhupada writes, explains this reason why we need to get these Brahmanas in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, Text 25. He explains it. Because the people are they're unintelligent. And then people are more attracted to the grandeur of yagyas and Vedic sacrifices. And these are very costly sacrifices. Huge amounts of money is spent of these ceremonies. So Prabhupada is explaining in this purport that when they opened the Krishna Balaram Mandir, then they invited many Brahmins, the local Brahmins, to come and do these sacrifices, because otherwise the local people will not attend. So anyway, these are smarter Brahmins, as Prabhupada said it. Because if they Westerners do these sacrifices, they won't accept. Even up till now they don't. Lots of them. If you know the language, you can hear them speaking all these things. So but then in Krishna Balaram Mandir, they perform Sankirtan, loud chanting with mridangas. And then they did this important Vedic sacrifices. So these Vedic sacrifices are meant for people who want to be elevated to heavenly planets. And the Sankirtan is meant for pure devotees who are interested in pleasing Krishna. And Prabhupada writes, speaks about all this in his purport. And he said that the inhabitants of Vrindavan would have not taken the installation ceremony very seriously. So then after that, Giriraj Maharaj went to Mathura with another devotee called Bhagatji to register the Bhaktivedanta Swami Charity Trust. So Prabhupada formed this trust. It was just so brilliant that he did so many different things, such an intelligent way. He formed this trust. There was a reason why he formed this trust, to create good relations among the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, especially the followers of his Guru Maharaj, because he wanted to support the projects of Prabhupada's god brothers that they could complete on their own, which they couldn't complete on their own. So he wanted to help them. This was so broad-minded. This is how an acharya is, very broad-minded. Sometimes, even we may become managers, but we can be very narrow-minded in our thinking. But you can see this broad-mindedness. Then you say that was Prabhupada. But then when are you going to do it? That's not a good excuse. So we have to see Prabhupada broad-mindedness. And Giriraj Maharaj went to Mathura. It's very hot, dealing with the bureaucracy there. They spent so much time. And when he got back, he was very tired. He was drained. He had to deal with the Indian lawyers, the courts, the rickshaws, the drivers, and the heat. So then, after 10 minutes, he took rest in the guest house. With a bang on the door, he was knocking. And sure enough, when he opened the door, it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj is saying, Prabhupada is furious because he registered the trust as Bhaktivedanta Charitable Trust. So one word was missing, Swami. And Prabhupada, that is not the name of the trust. It is Bhaktivedanta Swami Charities Trust. There could be so many Bhaktivedantas, but there is only one Bhaktivedanta Swami. You blew it. This is what Tamal Krishna Maharaj said. So then they had to go through the whole process again, go back the next day. Both of them went to Mathura and got it done. So then, although we could see from this, they were very good friends, both Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Giriraj Maharaj, they were like, as Prabhupada says it, two souls in one body. But they're completely opposite in personality. Two souls in one body. And Giriraj Maharaj made this mistake. He was, he didn't, they were good friends, but still he didn't compromise. He says, it would be nice to be simply for the sake of friendship if it was at the expense of Prabhupada's service. And that made me happy that our relationship was spiritual, based on Prabhupada's service. If I made a mistake that was detrimental to Prabhupada's service, he would let me know. So they did it and they informed Prabhupada. So therefore, friendship doesn't mean, all the time you pat me and I pat you. Sometimes we have to not sometimes, at all times, we have to be truthful. So then, the next day, Bhagatji came to Prabhupada's bedside and knelt near his head. And Prabhupada said to him, because he was suffering, I'm suffering like this because of the sins of my disciples. So that's another point. I discussed it in another, earlier on. It's, I think, in page 501 of this book. About this whole subject matter. How we can, if we break the principles and the spiritual master suffers. So Prabhupada is telling him, and then Bhagatji counteracts that. He says, no, the Shastra says just by chanting Hare Krishna once, one is free from all sins. What to speak of these boys? They are always chanting the holy name of Krishna. So he was seeing the other side of it. But then, Lord Chaitanya has warned that accepting a large number of disciples, unqualified disciples, is dangerous. But Bhagatji is looking the brighter side. He said, no. You have not accepted unqualified disciples. So it's a very nice exchange. And Bharadraj, who was there, he was hearing this. And it was, it struck him. And let's see what he says. who understood that the whole exchange was meant for the benefit of the devotees, warning them not to commit sin on the strength of chanting because it would cause suffering to the spiritual master. And when the time came not to accept large number of disciples, especially unqualified ones, he further considered that Prabhupada had accepted the suffering for our sake. So then after that, Giriraj Maharaj goes to Delhi to open a bank account. And he went to this Punjab bank. And then, Giriraj Maharaj was quite smart. I don't know where he had, maybe probably he's a lawyer's son. He had this understanding of how he can get tax exemption. And this is India now you're talking about. And because he was aware that if you restore an ancient place of worship or a place of worship that is famous in a particular state, there's some exemption of tax. He made all these different types of inquiries. And he did that. And then he was already in Vrindavan for a while, and he was required. His services were required back in Bombay, but he stayed. He stayed somehow. Perhaps Prabhupada wanted him there, and there's many things to say about that. But let's skip. Very interesting about the bank and yeah. So then, because remember that the temple, that is built in Juhu, there was like a jungle, and the devotees couldn't live. It was difficult. Mosquitoes, rats, so many. And then there's more discussions. And the place, the temple was so beautiful, but they had tenants on the property, and the tenants, they didn't want to move because now they have a bank at the temple. Of course, they didn't mind if they gradually became devotees. It was fine. Then Prabhupada, he returned back to his topic of the Juhu temple opening. And then he structured as to how he should give the Brahmins. He said, four Brahmins each, 4 from South India, 4 from Vrindavan, and 4 from Bombay. So that is how he wanted those different Brahmins to do that sacrifice when they're opening the temple. Then Giriraj Maharaj titles the next, within this final journey of Vrindavan, the final journey, a controversy of service. And this is very interesting, but it's a long, actually you need a lot of time. And this thing cannot be done in in one sitting. But if you have to really, I was hearing it from Giriraj Maharaj in Mayapur. When we were in Mayapur, we stayed for a while. Sukumar, I don't know if you were there, but Swarup was there. We were there in Mayapur for like maybe 3 weeks at least. We stayed in Mayapur. And it was Prabhupada's disappearance day. Yeah, Prabhupada's disappearance day. And just before going to the Prabhupada Samadhi, there were devotees speaking about Prabhupada. So there were other devotees left. There were many other devotees to speak. Indradumna Swami, Bibi Govinda Maharaj, there were quite a few devotees to speak. And but they asked Giriraj Maharaj to speak. And when he started speaking about that final pastime, there were maybe like 5,000 people in that marquee. It was all Raghunath Swami's disciples were packed out. You could hear a pin drop. It was just like and he started giving this description. That's why I was telling Alana that this part has to be done very slowly, but I don't know what's his take on it, because you have to know what Prabhupada said, and this whole exchange that and he started speaking very gently about the whole pastime. People just didn't move, but as soon as he stopped, you just see everybody rushing to him, just running to him. There were like Chinese people in the way, just rushing with their cameras out. They were so inspired. It was just so touchy, this controversy. So we'll start discussing this controversy where Prabhupada, Lokanath Maharaj had arrived from a bullock cart program. He visited different holy places of India. And then he was reporting to Prabhupada about this travel. So the next day, Prabhupada, because Prabhupada is in a very bad condition now, so he wanted to hand over the management, the responsibility to the GBC. He was saying that they should take responsibility, and he is like, the way he said, although I am living, consider me dead for the time being. And then he was handing over the management, and then he was saying, he said, you manage. Nowadays in India there is ample sunshine. So during daytime I shall travel, and nighttime make a camp under a tree. In this way let me travel to all the Tirtha stans. I am thinking in this way. What is your opinion? So he was thinking of traveling, going from one holy place to another. And but interesting, see how Prabhupada is asking for their opinion. Because Krishna can speak through the other people also. It's not that just because Prabhupada is a pure devotee, he just decided. He could do anything he wanted because he's the Acharya. But he didn't do that. There was consultation. Even in another incident with Giriraj Maharaj, which is now watering the seed, that Giriraj Maharaj was deciding where to serve Prabhupada will be the best. Whether it'll be Madras, whether it'll be in Bombay or wherever. But he tried to trick Prabhupada. But Prabhupada was wanting him to decide. So that decision, also has to come from the individual. Although managerially, there may be managerial considerations also. But here Prabhupada saying, now I hand it to you. It's your responsibility, and I'm free to travel. So then, Bhavananda says, we'll manage to the best of our ability. And Prabhupada said, you can manage, but Lokanath Party has got experience in this, so he could go with them. And Prabhupada was saying, you all are all experienced, but Jayapataka Maharaj said, that is only how much we are experienced is how much you have trained us. But there's discussions, and there's like 16 pages to this. I'll just quickly paraphrase it. Then Prabhupada is very, very ill, as we said. And then there was like, the Kaviraj means an Ayurvedic doctor was involved, attending to Prabhupada. But the devotees were afraid of the risk, because if you're traveling in a bullock cart and you're going to these different places, and the roads are like in India. India is India. I mean, if you travel in different places in India, so it's very risky. But Prabhupada was like an adamant, Uh, the devotees were scared. But then they were thinking of how to take Prabhupada. Some people are thinking, we should take him on a minibus. Different things. Then Prabhupada again, so he brings that point up again. He said, you decide. So decision is important to make, because one of the reasons why Arjuna didn't want to fight was that he was indecisive. And indecision is a sign of anxiety. If somebody is anxious, they're not decisive. So anyway, finally, Prabhupada says some things, but we'll skip all that. So one devotee is saying, and gradually go to my Prabhupada asked if Tamal Krishna was there, and Bhavananda informed him that he was, and that he had heard everything. By your going to the holy places, now this is Jayapataka Maharaj saying, you will purify the holy places. So it's interesting how a pure devotee will purify the holy places. Anyway, this is interesting. You are very famous, Jayapataka said. Wherever you go, there will be crowds of people to have your darshan. So different devotees were giving their opinions. Finally, Giriraj Maharaj gave his opinion, and he said, I think this is a good idea. I don't have any faith in the doctors and the treatments, because they are not working, and ultimately it depends on Krishna. And Krishna is everywhere. He can exercise his will in any condition. And as you said, if you go out and you recover, then that's very good. And even otherwise, if that is the Lord's decision, then this is a very glorious way. So Prabhupada concluded, let me go. He came to that conclusion. So then they're deciding where the parikram should begin. And, they said they could try it out in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada was still taking treatment, and Prabhupada had a dream. A dream that a Kaviraj, a doctor from the Ramanuja Sampradaya, would treat him and bring him back to his strength. But then there was a Kaviraj already treating him, and he was gaining strength. And he said, but between 10 to 15 days, he'll be okay. But then still, the concern was that the roads are very bumpy, and the bullock cart will hurt Prabhupada. But there were arrangements to put a mattress and so many different things to make it very comfortable for him. But one of the devotees reminded him, it was Bhavananda, who said how your Guru Maharaj, actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, would travel from Hulghat up to the Chaitanya Math in a bullock cart. So then there was decisions as to where Prabhupada would stay, because underneath the tree it's very cold and he will get sick. He's already ill. So this program was on, and Lokanath Maharaj goes to Mathura and hires. I'm just paraphrasing now. Just so interesting, but I just left the chunks of it off. Hires a bullock cart, and for some maybe 100 rupees. So you just hire the bullock cart, and now They were going to go around Vrindavan Parikram. So that's like a 3 hour, 2.5, 3 hour. But with a bullock cart, it'll take you 6 hours to go around. And, the devotees were concerned because it was brought up that, Bhavananda brought that up, that if we lose you, then the Srimad Bhagavatam will not be finished. There's so many different works that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is probably the most important of all his works and will not be finished. But Prabhupada is saying, no, it's not a risk. Because he was really determined to go. Then, I'm just skipping all the pages. Just so interesting. Let me just go towards the end of it. Yeah, anyway, it comes to the point where you got the carts. Yeah. Then it was changed, I'll just read this. One day experiment Prabhupada repeated. It is just for one day because he just wanted to go around Vrindavan Parikrama. And Lokanath Maharaj said, we just hired it for one day. And Prabhupada is saying, you can be rest assured that I will not die in one day. Then he said, so we could go to Govardhan. Hamsudata asked, because tomorrow is Govardhan Puja. So finally, before they could test and do all these things, and where would Prabhupada would stay and how they will travel, there was one of Prabhupada's godbrother, Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. He came that evening anyway, Babaji Maharaj and Prabhupada were godbrothers, and they had a very good relationship. And Prabhupada had greeted him. And then Prabhupada told him that the plan to go, in Bengali he was speaking, and told him that he wants to go to Govardhan and for the Govardhan Puja. And he asked whether he will accompany him. So Babaji Maharaj agreed, on your instruction I will come. So Bhakti Charo Maharaj says, well, we'll leave tomorrow 5 o'clock in the morning. And we'll stay overnight at Govardhan. So anyway, Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj was from Imli Tal, and he forgot his japa mala. So he wanted to go, to get his japa mala. So the devotees took him and got his japa mala, and he came back and stayed with Prabhupada. But this is the place we have to stop. It's 8:30 now. But this is an amazing, I skipped 90% of it. But it's just such an amazing exchanges, Prabhupada was having with his devotees. You could see how he was pulling out their love, churning out taking out their love, and it continues. But you have to, you have to have that mood to give this information. So it stops here. Next week, the other devotees, whoever going to be speaking, should continue on it, as to what happened and how the exchanges with the different devotees till the final ending. But Bhakti Charama is very concerned that if Prabhupada stayed under trees it'll definitely catch him a cold. And he mentioned that if one of the window was open in the night, Prabhupada starts feeling cold in spite of the blankets. So he was in a very frail condition. So we'll stop here. There's any comments or questions anybody would like to ask on this, what we just spoke on? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki